a lot about Project Esther, I believe, in respect to Project 2025. Can you give us a breakdown on what these things mean for people who have no clue?
Unfortunately, Project 2025 is now being implemented. The estimates are it's about 55% implemented.
Yeah.
And this is from a group called the Heritage Foundation that in the 1980s started getting together every year and creating a plan of how they would govern if their kind of conservatism could take control of the country.
Right.
They've been tweaking this thing since the 80s, since Ronald Reagan was president, since a lot of folks that are watching this before they were even born. But every 4 years, they talk about how they would implement it if a president of their choice came in.
Yeah.
They've never been able to fully implement it because normal people were in the government. People who would look at some of these things and go, firing the entire federal workforce, that doesn't sound like a good idea.
Doesn't sound like a good idea? What do you guys think?
Deleting the Department of Education, that really doesn't sound like a good idea.
What about that one? Deleting the Department of Education. Most people don't know that was founded in 1979. And as far as I know, my grandparents were pretty damn smart in comparison to what I see coming out now. They were able to write in cursive, and they were pretty damn responsible. They took care of what they had to do. And all of it out of the public school system. Maybe not the best, but no Department of Education needed.
Good idea.
Right.
Reducing, the numbers of people who work in the Pentagon who deal with things like suicide, that doesn't seem like a good idea.
Reducing the number of people that work in the Pentagon. So I didn't realize there were like suicide crisis. But I mean, the notion that the federal government has or had, I think it was 2.3 million employees, and we can't get that down by a little bit. No, you don't think so?
Rid of research into ailments that mainly target women and people of color. No, we need research, getting rid of scientific research. All of that's in Project 2025. Having a president who's more like a king, in which he completely controls the federal government and cannot be restrained by the courts, that's in Project 2025. That's happening. Well, those same people wrote another project called Project Esther, which they also conveniently posted online. That's how confident they are. Project Esther is about eliminating the First Amendment, meaning that they will make it illegal to protest anything that they say is terrorism. What do they think is terrorism? Being pro-Palestine. They believe that criticizing Israel is terrorism. They also want to subjugate women and force them, which is why it's called Project Esther, Esther from the Bible, to convince women, either convince them or force them to come out of the workforce and largely go back into the home.
Either convince them or force them. How, in fact, would they do that? Now, here, one point that I would agree with. If you were granted a visa here or, whatever, I'm not a big fan of making a deal with somebody and then saying, oh, because you said X, you have to leave. If they're sponsoring terrorism or whatever, stuff like that, okay, that's a different story. If you're protesting on a campus, I don't care what it is you're saying. I don't care what you're saying, right? Let's be very clear. You should not be kicking people out of the country for what they're saying, period. If they're organizing and doing things, to create violence, then that's another story. If they're sending money back to terrorist organizations, listen, all I'm saying is this. I do not agree with the relinquishing of visas if all these students were doing is speech. I don't agree with that. I think that it should be here. I think we should combat their ideas with our ideas, and we should push forward like Americans, being able to say what we think. But when it comes to promoting women staying home, and raising children, yeah, I think we absolutely need to be doing that, right? This whole notion of not having anybody, having nannies raise the next generation is absurd, ridiculous, and it's just stupid. I've been fortunate enough where it's hard. It is really hard to have your wife stay home, right? You got to cut back on a lot of things. Right, you can't eat out at the restaurants. You're pretty much limited to maybe one trip a year, if that. You have to scale things down, but it's important to us, and that's what we've done, and that's what we did. But there are, it's not something that's really incentivized. It's not glamorous. All my other friends, when I go to work, and they have no issues with paying their bills and stuff like they're way more ahead than I am. But that was an important thing. And I think that should be, something that we push as a good thing, right? Not dropping off our kid after they're 3 months old to a place and just you raise him and I'm gonna go do clerical work. Think about that. How much when you look at a middle class family, think about what the child cost burden is gonna cost you, and then the woman going to work. How much more extra money are you going to have in that pot in the end when it comes to transporting the child? Obviously, they have to feed the child there, and the day to day. I mean, you're talking about in New York, it could easily be $150 a day for childcare, easy. I mean, and let's say the woman makes $200 a day, so you're at a 50. You're making $50, and you're having somebody else raise your kid. You know, it should be something that is put up on a pedestal. If you want to stay home and raise your kids and make a beautiful home, that should be something that we should all strive for. It should, at the very least, not to say you can do whatever you want, but the narrative now is that that's a bad thing, that it's not good, and it is good. It's hands down one of the best things that I think we've done in my family. You know, we have a beautiful home. The kids are super happy when they're home. They never want to leave the house. It's just to have a wife that really maintains the house is something that it should be shouted out of the rooftops. It is an amazing thing. If something that you can't do, I understand that. But if you can take the little sacrifices that it takes to make it happen, try. At the very least, try until they go to school. Try to have all your kids at least to school age where, I mean, no, a lot of people don't like sending their kids to school, but even in those years, like we had a couple of kids that we didn't send them to school until kindergarten. Like we skipped pre-K. Like, we're home, let's do the pre-K thing here. We'll just with our kids. I cannot speak enough of how amazing that is.
They don't like the idea of women like you and me, but really not you and me, more like Betty and Suzanne.
Right.
Working.
Mm-hmm.
And so the goal is to get Betty and Suzanne out of the workforce, out of the military, out of leadership in corporate America, and back into the kitchen.
Right.
And so Project Esther has those twin goals: protecting Israel from protest and criticism by making that criticism basically illegal.
Honestly, like, I think the majority of MAGA right now is on the point with criticizing Israel. I'm not sure, like, maybe there's definitely still a pretty strong contingent of MAGA that is very pro-Israel, but you have massive swaths of the right that are not down with the Israel thing.
Legal, shutting down those protests on college campuses and forcing women back into the home.
Wow. And what does this mean for Black people?
Well, what we always have to remember is that when they say they want women back home, they don't mean us.
Right.
Because they do want us in the home, cooking for the white family.
Yes.
They want back the kind of world in the 1950s where the only time you saw a Black woman, she had a maid's uniform on, and she was taking care of your children. And the only time they...
Yeah, I don't think that's what they're going for. Could be wrong. I thought it was to have the women back at home raising their own children. You know, like, if you're just going to hire somebody to come into the house, then you're still kind of defeating the purpose.
They saw a Black man is that he was their butler and their driver.
Right.
They really miss the hierarchical past that we tried to leave behind. But that's not that old. We're talking about the 1950s. They desperately want that world back, if not the 40s, 30s, or the 1890s. So the goal of trying to force the country backwards to that late 19th century or early 20th century, they're very serious about. And
that's not what I see. I see the goal is to bring pride back to America, to bring pride back into being a housewife and caring for your children. Again, not something, the option should be there. There should be an option where you, as a family, you can sit down, you can open up your books, and you can say, okay, we are going to have more moderate living situation in order for mom to stay home with the kids. That's something that I think everybody should have a conversation about, because it is one of the best things you can do. We're going to have a smaller house than we would have liked. You know, we're going to maybe not have a pool. We're going to, maybe, I mean, we still manage to, not eat out, but, get takeout once a week. That's what you got to do. The only vacation we take is to go see her parents. We've been doing that for many, many years. And, we haven't gone on the cool trips and stuff like that because this is what we decided to do. It's not about having slaves inside of a house. Like, I still wouldn't want somebody in my house doing this stuff. I want us doing it. That's the whole point. We're raising them. So I'm not exactly sure what kind of tangent she's going on. I think she ends it here. Let's see. Guys, if you're still here, please hit the subscribe button. I know I always say it too late. Everybody's probably gone. But if you're here, hit the subscribe button. Helps me out a lot. Thanks.
One of the reasons they're so serious about it is that if you go back before the 20th century, there were no income taxes, there were no regulations on business. You could earn as much money as you want, leave 100% of it to your children with no taxes.
Right.
That's the world they want back. And to get it.
Right. No income taxes. Wait, let's go over that again. That's
taxes, there were no regulations on business. So the goal of trying to force the country backwards to that late 19th century or early 20th century, they're very serious about. And one of the reasons they're so serious about it is that if you go back before the 20th century, there were no income taxes.
No income taxes.
There were no regulations on business.
No regulations on business.
You could earn as much money as you want, leave 100% of it to your children with no
You can earn as much money as you want and leave 100% to your children.
taxes.
Right.
That's
No
the
taxes.
world they want back. And to
That's the world we want back. And that's the world she's railing against. Oh my God. These people are tards. Like what? Like what? So I get to keep my money. I can open a business and not be like burdened and just get it going. That is amazing. It is amazing that they put that out there and actually think that, like we're gonna be like, oh, darn, like who the hell is against that stuff? Apparently, I know she is because of the way she's saying it.
get it back, they need society to change. They need people to be less modern. They need people to want fewer things. They need people to be satisfied just being workers. And they don't really believe.
See, it's so nonsensical. It's so nonsensical. They need people to want less things and be satisfied just being workers. But her point prior to that was that people want to keep more of their own money and be more able to readily open businesses. It doesn't, what? What are we even talking about? None of this makes sense. She doesn't know what she's saying. Like, if that clip right there doesn't make it completely apparent, and listen, watch the whole thing. It's 30 minutes long. It's a rough watch, especially the first 10 minutes where they're just like glossing, they're all over each other, like kissing each other, and yes, queen this and that. The first 10 minutes are brutal. Once you get past that, she dives into her mental thinking and substance, whatever that means. But if something like that doesn't show you immediately what we're dealing with, like the mental thing that we're dealing with here, I don't know what does. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. 6283 Talk on the X. If you want to follow me on the X, hit the subscribe button. Does me all the good. I am John Soto. I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.